Hi, I'm Brenda and welcome to Phoenix Furniture Studio. In this week's video, we're going to be working on this vintage Nathan coffee table, which at the moment, as you can see, is a orangey varnish colour, and my client wants it a lot more modern for her home. So we're going to be busting out the neutral paint, and we're going to be paint washing some of the top and painting the rest. So if that sounds of interest to you, then stay tuned. This is the video for you. First thing I'm going to do is give everything a scuff sand before I prime. I've got 180 grit on my sandpaper, and I'm also going to be making use of this sponge interface pad for the curved edges. So I'm just going to grab my mask. Before I go into sand, I did give this a really good clean. I cleaned it with some liquid sander and then just went over that with some clean water as well. I'll stick a card up here, which is a video I did that runs through my cleaning process when I'm cleaning pieces of furniture. So if you want more details behind the cleaning, check that video out after you finish this one. But yeah, so let's go into sanding now. I've given everything a clean down with some clean water, and just to give you an idea, if I was to apply just some top coat to that as is, that's the colour it would be that orange colour. So my client wants this paint washed, so she wants the inner cog to be paint washed and the rest to be a solid paint colour. So I've sanded down to raw the middle cog, and I'll work on that last. I'm going to work on the outside solid colour at the minute. Because of the orangey colour of the wood, I am going to prime using Bin because it is a really good shellac based primer which has the stain blocking properties and also really good adhesion properties. So I'm going to get the Bin out, grab a brush and give it a first coat of primer. It's the next day and the primer is fully dry now, so I'm just going to go in with a fine grit sanding sponge and I'm going to give this a light sand just to smooth out any ridges in the primer, and then we can move on to painting. For paint, I'm going to be using this Hemway chalk paint in the colour Soft Khaki Beige, and I'm going to be painting that on with my Zebra 2-inch angle brush. For this first coat of paint, I'm not looking for full coverage. I'm just applying a thin coat of paint, and I'll do multiple thin coats until I get the coverage that I want. Thin coats of paint tend to dry quicker, even out level better, unless it's really hot, I guess, and then your paint doesn't have time to level out while it's drying. But you should get a smoother finish with thinner coats of paint, in theory. I'm not too worried about where it's overlapping. I'm just going to sand that. Once everything's painted, I'll sand that and then do my paint wash. I'm just painting in all the recessed areas here as well, so that there's no dark line between the paint and the paint wash when I come to do it. It's just sort of a seamless paint to paint wash finish. I'm now going to go in with coat number 2. This is dried overnight. And again, just another thin coat. And hopefully this should provide the full coverage. And it may just be sort of another half a coat that I need to do, but we'll see. Right, having a look at some of the legs, I think I am going to need to go in with the 3rd coat. There's just not full coverage on there. You can still see some of the primer underneath, so I'll leave that to dry for a couple of hours, then I'll go over it completely with the 3rd coat. After a few goes with the sander, I realised it'd be easier just to use a little hand sanding tool and some sandpaper, so I finished off the rest of the table with that, then hoovered off the dust and gave it a wipe down with a damp cloth. Here I'm just making my paint wash mix, and I normally use a 50-50 mix, so 50% paint to 50% water, because I like my paint washes to be quite opaque. To apply the paint wash, I normally spritz the surface with some water just to get it saturated, and then I apply the paint wash. I feel like it just helps distribute the paint wash more evenly and help it to absorb more evenly as well. So just brushing a thin coat onto the surface, and once I fully covered it, then I'll take a cloth and wipe it back. The one that I did use initially was leaving a lot of fluffies on the surface, so then I changed to a paper towel to wipe it back. I like to wipe my paint washes back until there's very little resistance on the paper towel or cloth, and I'll go in straight away with my second coat, and the same process, apply a thin layer, wipe it back, and if I feel like it needs another coat, then I'll go in with a third coat. The thing with paint washes is I feel like they look like a hot mess initially and you think, oh my god, this isn't working, what am I going to do? But just persevere, because they do get better with each layer that you add. And when you're wiping it back with your towel or your cloth, just remember to keep turning it to a clean surface so that you're not just wiping the paint wash around as your cloth gets saturated. So by turning it, you're going to absorb some of that paint wash onto the clean side and then just keep going over and over again. And just trust the process. It works out in the end. Once I'd finished with the paint wash and let it dry, I just went through and touched up all the edges with paint and gave it a light sand with 180 grit sandpaper just to smooth out the wood fibres, because that water has caused the wood grain to swell, so it's a bit rough to the touch. That's how it looks after it's paint wash, so it looks really nice. It's really toned down that orangey colour in the wood, so I'm going to give it a couple of coats of satin varnish now, which I'm going to spray in my Wagner W890. After this varnish dried, I did do one more coat of the paint wash. I felt like it needed it, and then a final coat of varnish and left that to dry fully. Here's a quick reminder of the before. And this is how it looks now. My client is absolutely delighted with it. She loves the more modern neutral look and it fits in with her decor beautifully. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned something useful. Drop me a comment below and like and subscribe. Thank you. See you in the next video.